Hey, thanks for being a part of the conversation. Let's do some pod crashing. Episode number 338 is with Gregg Rosenthal from the podcast NFL Daily. Gregg, I'll tell you what, everybody's anxiety has got to be going through the roof. I mean, you've got your fantasy football players, you've got your real football players, you've got us that are nervous about this new season. This has got to be a big mystery this year for everybody.
It is every year, which I love. You throw in the gamblers too; they're ready to get back into it. That's the great thing about the NFL. When you only have 17 games, you have a single elimination tournament at the end. It's just like the most unpredictable sport you can have, despite the Chiefs making it look predictable the last couple of years.
Yeah. Speaking of those 17 games, let's get to the point. Let's call out the elephant here. Let's get rid of preseason and let's put in more games. I'm tired of looking at preseason.
You know who agrees with you is my boss's 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 boss, Roger Goodell. Like he hates the preseason. I think we're going there. I think we're getting 18 games and 2 preseason games. And I don't know how far away that is. I don't think it's going to be that long. It might be just a matter of a couple of years.
So what's going to come first, the 18th and 19th game or a team in London or Canada?
Just the 18th game. 19's crazy. Man, 18 seems a little crazy to me, to be honest. I think that might be the outer limit. But 18, I think, is going to happen. I don't think they're going to have a team in London. What they've really settled on, and I go to London every year, it's growing, and it's popular there, is I think they're going to have a whole week essentially of international games. They're already cranking it up to 9 games next year over the course of the season. And so I think we're going to get to a point where 1 week of the schedule is essentially all international. I don't know if they do it all at once, but every team has an international game every single year. I think that's where they've kind of headed.
How do you keep yourself together when every day is never the same as the next day? I mean, there's constant change going on.
Oh, that's what I like, because otherwise you get bored. Like that's one of the most fun things I think about working in sports is that one season is never the same as the next. One Tuesday is even never the same as the other one. So people are interested in it. So I get into the minutia of it on NFL Daily. We obviously cover all the games and recap all that stuff, but it's all the transactions, all the movement, all the strategy that makes it fun.
Is there a side of your creative imagination that's wondering if Taylor Swift is going to show up at that Chiefs game this weekend?
She probably will, right?
Yep.
It's Thursday. Actually, I have no idea what her concert schedule is. I feel like she's off the road now. I know the relationship's going well because they just bought a horse together and named it after Taylor Swift. So that's a pretty good sign.
Wow. All right, let's talk about Bo Nix. Are we going to start seeing a lot of Knicks jerseys across this country?
Country is a stretch, but man, the Broncos fans are really high on this kid. Let's see it in the regular season, that week 1 game against Seattle, who I think is going to be a sneaky good defense. Let's see it. I think he could be a quarterback that comes in better than most rookie quarterbacks because of his experience, his age, the system Sean Payton runs. But the ceiling to me is a little lower than you would want on a first round pick. To me, he has a real good chance to come and be like an average starting quarterback, which for the Broncos is a big upgrade over what they've had the last 8 or 9 years.
Well, when you bring up average quarterback right away, I'm thinking of from Clemson, Mr. Trevor Lawrence. What's happened here with this story?
Yeah. He got hurt last year, midway through the year, but I'm with you. There's just been something a little missing. I think when I talk to people around the league, I hate to overrate like an it factor type of thing, the leadership, the stuff of really wanting it more than any other quarterback that comes into the play. And I think there are questions about that with Trevor Lawrence. He's certainly very talented. I think he's better than average, but he hasn't been nearly as good as you would have expected. And he sees guys coming to the league, even in his own division, CJ Stroud. To me, CJ Stroud showed right away he's already a tick above Trevor Lawrence.
So what is it like for you to not have these networks around you with these podcasts? Because you guys really get into some subjects, and there are times you argue a little bit, but to me, that's what it's all about.
Right. Look, the NFL has always let us say what we need to say to a certain extent. They've never really said it. You have an idea of what could cross the third rail, but I've always been pleasantly surprised. We can talk about everything. We can talk about the suspensions. We can talk about who's being a jerk, who doesn't deserve to have their job. And yeah, it's a fine balance that you have, but and that these are people that you're talking about. But usually I feel like we can say what we need to.
Don't you think that part of the NFL, the fun is at the tailgating or at a grocery store where everybody is wearing their team jerseys?
Yes, I started working in baseball 20 plus years ago. And I do think like what a different career that would have been. Not that it's not a good sport, but there is something about the fact that everyone at school, my kids, like it's the lingua franca. It's the language we have of this entire country where everyone has so many different things going on that yet everyone has an opinion on Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. What's your go-to after week number 1? Do you go to the injury report first, or do you go to the stats of who got in?
Yeah, I would go to the stats. I would go to the film, the game. Like I try to set myself apart by watching, because you can't watch it all on Sunday. You watch it out, through the course of the week and try to get your eyes on every single player, every single game, so you actually know what you're talking about when you're talking about all 32 teams daily, because it tells you a lot. You get used to watching these games, and half the time you turn on ESPN and you see the main guys honking there, and you realize, oh, they don't know what they're talking about at all. They did not really watch this thing.
One of the greatest things about your podcast, NFL Daily, is the fact that it's almost like I get my Terry Bradshaw every day now. I don't have to wait till Sunday to get Terry Bradshaw, because those guys, they really do give us the inside. But god dang, dude, you give us the real scoop on the inside.
Yeah, doing it daily. We started up in July. We were wondering what that was going to feel like, because I've been on podcasts before that, it's two times a week, 3 times a week, that sort of thing. And I've loved getting into the rhythm of it. It's a league that if you really try to cover all 32 teams, like you can go pretty deep on all those teams all the time, and people want to hear it. So it's been a lot of fun. It's in your podcast feed, like first thing every morning, because we tape it late in the afternoon.
So are you prepping for all these things? And the reason why I bring that up is because so many times in radio, we always say, save it for the air, save it for the air. We'll get there. Just bring your game.
Yes. I try not to have good stuff with all my co-hosts before we start talking. And yes, I look at my life as prep. Like the hour we're taping is the most fun hour of the day. And the rest of the day, I'm just trying to keep track and getting ready, and so that you don't really have to know what you're going to say. I'm sure you know that when you get on the air, you're already ready with everything in your head, and you just see how it goes.
Wow. The game is so unpredictable. My eyes are on Aaron Rodgers this weekend. What about yours?
Yes, that's a fun one. I think about this game that's in Brazil. It's on Friday night, and it's going to be Eagles, Packers, which to me are 2 fascinating teams. Young quarterbacks, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, 2 new coaches in terms of the coordinators, defense for the Packers, offense for the Eagles, what kind of group they're going to run. And 2 teams that if you told me it's Packers, Chiefs in the Super Bowl, or it's Eagles, Bills in the Super Bowl, like I can see that. The NFC is wide open, and these are 2 teams that maybe they won't live up to their potential or anything, but there are 2 teams I'm really excited to watch. I think they both will make the playoffs, and I think they're 2 of the most exciting teams, and so that's a great week 1 matchup.
When you've got a podcast like this, that means the big guys are listening as well. Which one of those on Sunday before the game are going to pull you in? Is it going to be Fox or is it going to be CBS? Somebody's going to pull you in, dude.
Well, I'm happy at the NFL, but yeah, let's go. In the competition, it wouldn't matter. Fox is nearby in LA, so that's nice. I'm out in LA. It's only a few miles away, so I would take that.
Okay, we have turf issues here in the Carolinas, and so does Aaron Rodgers. He's got those turf issues as well. What are we going to do about this thing called turf?
It's funny. The NFL has, I think, commissioned a study, and they're trying out all these different turfs, and they're trying to show that whether it's worth changing or not. I do think we're getting to the point that most of the fields in the league are going to be natural grass or some version of it. Even if it's not that much safer, because look, injuries happen on grass. The players love it. They like it better. They feel more comfortable. It's a players' league. Make your players happy. You can get it done. You've got enough money.
Tom Brady inside that booth. I'm excited, but at the same time, is he going to say crazy stuff?
I don't think he's going to be crazy. I'm more optimistic about him. I thought he'd be boring, frankly, because when was the last time you heard Tom Brady say anything interesting? But right. I have to say, as he's kind of gone on this media tour, and I've heard of all the prep that he's doing, I think he might be better than I was giving him credit for. I didn't even think he was going to do it. I thought Fox just gave him $30 million a year because they wanted to hang out with him at like corporate shindigs with the Murdoch kids and stuff. But it seems like he's actually taking it seriously, to be fair.
Yeah, because I saw him on some film yesterday wearing the headset and all dressed up in a fancy suit. And I kept going, God, is that really how I want to see Tom Brady?
It is weird. I grew up a Patriots fan, and Belichick is everywhere. He has 5 different media jobs, and Brady's got this. And I think it's great if they're interesting. Belichick is interesting. I'm curious. Brady's kind of harsh, though. Like, that's something his teammates will tell you. He is so great. I do wonder, he's going to be watching these quarterbacks, and there's some great ones out there, but I have a feeling he's going to be watching Deshaun Watson for the Browns in week 1 and be like, what is this guy thinking? Like, he can't understand how other quarterbacks think because he's Tom Brady and he's never thought that way.
The infamous cut down day. How many days were screwed up because of this with those people that you decided to put their fantasy teams together last week?
Right. And you find about injuries and trades happen. Cut down day is a tough day in the NFL. So many people getting fired and changes, and you got to stay on top of it. But it is nice when it happens because it actually, the day after, I feel like, okay, finally football is back. Like, I've been pretending that football is back and trying to get myself psyched up the last month or whatever. But when cut down day happens, we're only like a week away from the kickoff game, and we're really here. We have the actual teams when you look at the depth charts. And so to me, that's an exciting part of the season.
What's your gut on the Jaguars this year? And the reason why I bring that up is because they came into the league the same time the Carolina Panthers did. And so my heart is still with the Jaguars because we're like brothers and sisters.
Yeah, and they started out so hot. And really the last 10 years, except for that one season, 2017, they've been one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're one of the teams I have the hardest time knowing what to do with. Like, if you told me on our show, we have something called the Dalton scale because it was based on Andy Dalton was the very middle of quarterbacks. So if you have a quarterback better than Andy Dalton, you have a franchise quarterback. If it's worse, then you don't have a franchise quarterback. And to me, the Jaguars are like the Andy Dalton of teams. They're just right in the middle. They don't make you excited. They're not too good. They're not too bad. They're like a piece of toast. And Trevor Lawrence is kind of like that as a player too. To me, they're a third place team in this division, and yet they'll probably win 8 or 9 games, and I don't think they'll be bad, and they won't be too good either.
Well, they've always got that power too to come up there and just spank the Carolina Panthers. It's like, God dang, they weren't supposed to win this game. What happened here? I mean, both teams are willing to drop the ball.
Yeah, the Panthers have been more exciting, I think, over the last 15 years, certainly not the last couple, that it's gotten pretty grim with Carolina. There's some reason to have some hope in Carolina. Dave Canales is a good new head coach. I do think they can help Bryce Young at least be respectable, be a decent starting quarterback this year.
Is he too short? Be open.
It's not just that he's too short. I think it's just that he's too slight of frame. Can you build an offense around a guy that short that needs to create, that doesn't really play from the pocket? Look, Kyler Murray's not much taller. Russell Wilson's not much taller. Drew Brees is not much taller. They've all shown that you can do it, but is he talented enough to make it happen? I think this year will go a long way to finding out.
Speaking of Russell Wilson, what happened to this dynasty guy?
Yeah, he was one of those players, I think, if you thought about it, was never going to age well because he just had a specific skill set. He's so physical. He can take hits. He's so athletic, but he's a shorter guy who didn't really see the field, kind of like a Bryce Young, but had that one superpower, which is he can escape getting sacked, and he can throw the ball deep down the field better than practically anyone that's ever played. Now, he can still do that, but he can't escape anymore, and that really was his superpower. So as he's gotten older and slower, he's just a little more limited. He's not a guy like a Tom Brady or, let's say, even a CJ Stroud, to pick a young player who kind of wins with his mind, going through 1 to 2 to 3, his progressions. He was winning by getting out of the way of defenders and throwing it deep.
Do you ever get around to the other cities in the way that, Charlotte has become such a melting pot with people coming from all over the nation? I mean, you've got your Packer fans, you've got your Steeler fans, you've got your Saints fans. In fact, those Saints think they've got themselves the greatest dang team on the planet this year.
Do they? I mean, come on. No. Saints fans, I don't even think Saints fans think that. I think they're sick of this Dennis Allen team just because as a coach, they're an interesting team. I talked about how the Jaguars are right in the middle. I think that's what the Saints want. Ever since Drew Brees left, they have this structure in their front office where they're just hoping to get to 9 wins. So they're spending all this money and getting all these veterans, and they're just trying to be in the middle so that no one gets fired and everyone keeps their job, which, frankly, I identify with. I get it, but they're not aiming high. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can the Niners stay?
I worry about the Niners. They are a team I think could decline a lot this year. They've had these holdouts with Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk. They're counting on their big stars to stay healthy. Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey. They are a team, if I had to pick one to kind of decline a handful of wins, they would be up there.
Wow. One of the things that you brought up that I've never heard of before is this thing called the power poll. I think fans are going to dig this. Are you going to continue it?
Yes, that was us voting kind of where the league stood going into the season. And look, we had the 49ers second, I believe, on that, even though I thought they'd be a little lower. But yeah, we'll revisit that throughout the course of the season, kind of group the teams into the tiers. See if your Panthers, can escape that bottom tier. So to me, it is nice to have lower expectations. If they can just get to be like the 23rd best team in the league, that's a good season for the Panthers.
But being, in Carolina, where we've got the Tar Heels and Duke, I mean, we want to be in the playoffs. We want to have the action.
Yes, and you're not going to be there this year, but you can start building towards it. I think what they did in terms of building up their offensive line and really spending as much as they could to make Bryce Young's life a little easier was smart. And I think next year will be about improving the defense too.
You opened up my eyes when you were talking about the top 50 free agents for 2025. My God, that seems like a large number.
Yes, I do that column every year, kind of just like looking ahead to who's going to be available because, look, that's how teams try to improve themselves. And there's a lot of good receivers that'll be out there. And one of them might be Brandon Ayuk of the 49ers, T. Higgins of the Bengals, DeAndre Hopkins should be out there. I think if you need a receiver, and I know the Panthers, for instance, are going to be one team, but a lot of teams do. I think there will be some available next offseason.
So are you glad that Riverboat Ron is not with the Commanders?
Funny you mention him. He's actually going to be on NFL Daily next week, I believe. I don't know if he knows this yet. We're going to be talking about like who's going to win Coach of the Year. And he was a fun coach when he was with the Panthers. I loved his attitude in terms of going for it. And I love those Cam Newton teams. On my old podcast, the Around the NFL podcast, we had something called the team of the Around the NFL. And we would pick a team every year. And they were their first ever team, the 2013 Panthers. I think that was such a fun team. The 2015 team that made the Super Bowl was really fun. So to me, that was a fun era in Carolina.
That guy, as a real person, is so down to earth. I mean, you'll see him at a grocery store, and he'll just sit there and talk to you, and it's like going, "Oh my God," And I mean, he loves people.
He does. That's why I'm excited to have him on the show. I've met him a few times, but he is now working with us actually at NFL Network. So we heard he was in the building. We're like, oh, we got to get him on. He won Coach of the Year twice. So we're going to go through who could win Coach of the Year, and he's going to get, pick who he thinks are the best coaches in the league.
Do you think Jaden Daniels is going to have the right leadership?
Yes. I like Dan Quinn, his head coach. I like the ownership change there. It was great news for the entire NFL, especially for Commanders fans when they got rid of Dan Snyder, the worst NFL owner in history, if you ask me. And Jaden Daniels is a guy that everyone that meets him, everything you hear about him is that he is that dude. He is ready to lead a franchise. Like the Panthers, I don't think they have the talent around him to win yet, but I think he'll play well enough this year that they'll feel really good about their future.
What's your gut telling you about the NFL being on the streaming platforms? I mean, not everybody can get those games now?
Like, that is true, and yet it's just where the world's going, and it's just part of it. And so I think that's unfortunate that it's not as big of an audience as an NBC, but it's getting there. And yeah, those games on Prime, on Netflix, on Christmas, that was a seismic day when they announced that. Well, first of all, because I realized, I'm working now on a doubleheader on Christmas. That's fun to tell my family. And then also, yeah, you got to get Netflix to watch those games, and they gave them really good games too.
Wow. Where can people go to find out more about everybody that's involved with NFL Daily? Because I want them to really understand this is a team effort, like a true professional team.
Absolutely. I love my co-hosts, Patrick Claybon, Colleen Wolfe, Steve Weish. It's a great group. And we're all on NFL Network. But look, NFL Daily is it's in the title. It's there in your inbox in terms of your podcast feed every single morning. We record it the night before, and so that it's ready for you. We love that consistency. And I'm really looking forward to our recap shows. Yes. We tape right after these games happen on Sundays, on Mondays, on Thursdays, so you get the instant reaction to the games.
I love it. Please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, dude.
Appreciate it. Love talking to you.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you. You too.